from today, you can start the process of applying for a grant from the SA Social Security Agency online. In other words, you won't have to go to a SASSA office to stand in a queue to apply for a grant. You can imagine how important this will be for so many people. The CEO of the South African Social Security Agency is Totsie Memela. Ma'am, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time today. How does this new system work?
What we've learned in the past few months when we had, since COVID started, was that it was very important for us to make sure that we continue on our strategy of making sure that we digitize our environment, but also to make sure that our people have got choice and they have opportunities in instances where they have access to technology that they can be able to apply without necessarily having to come and queue in our offices. So this is a journey that we had already started. It was just fast-tracked with us going through the COVID period and also learning from the journey that we've taken over the past 6 months.
Well, I was going to say, so much has happened in your space over the last 6 months during the pandemic. Is this building then on some of the changes you had to make?
The exciting change that we had to make was to make sure, first and foremost, that the 9 million people that had to apply for the 350 grant didn't have to come to our offices for them to apply for the grant. But the other issue was for us to make sure that together with NDA, we get people that can support people on the ground in terms of helping them understand as to what it is that they can do differently in terms of making sure that they observe the social distance, that they use the masks, and to make sure that they are supported when they come to the different environments, both to the access points where they needed to get paid, but also to our offices. We needed to make sure that we provide support on the ground. This has been a very challenging time, which made us fast-track some of the projects that we had already thought about because, for example, we need to make sure that our clients can be able to apply for grants without necessarily having to come to our offices. Those that still choose to come will still have access to being able to come to our offices, but those that have access to technology and have got children that can support them in terms of teaching them what to do can be able to do that.
Okay, so once you get to the SASSA, I presume it's the SASSA website, what do you look for? Where do you start the process? What do you need to have when you actually start applying online?
When you apply online, what is going to be required is for people to be able to have a secured environment for them to load their documents, because as we know, in the digital space, it doesn't mean that we don't have challenges generally. So it's for one, for example, the 2 grants that we're going to start with. It's the grant for the elderly and the child support grant, which is basically the bulk of our grants, because the other ones, for example, the disability grant is going to require that a person goes for medical assessments. So we can't be able to do that now, because we'll have to be linked with the medical facilities where they actually go and do the assessment. So for these, for example, for the elderly grant, we need to be clear on who are you married to, so that we can ensure that when we do the assessment of the income, we understand that you actually qualify for the grant, so that, again, we don't have some of the challenges that we had in terms of making sure that we've got the correct data.
Is it quite a simple process? I realize there's certain information you absolutely have to have. It can't just be I want a grant and click. It's got to be more complicated than that, right? But is it quite simple? Because, I mean, some people, I can look at a website and I can lose my mind, frankly.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean that because you've applied, you necessarily qualify. We still have to take you through the process. For example, as a family, if one of the partners in many instances is actually employed and still is earning income, it depends on the threshold of the income before we can actually approve that elderly grant. And what's going to be exciting, particularly for the child support grants, is that in many instances, we found situations where a boyfriend or the partner will phone in and say, but I'm supporting my child, and here it is that the mother is actually getting a grant, which I believe they don't qualify for. We will need also to understand as to who the father of the child is, so that we can ensure that the people that actually get even the child support grant are people that actually deserve it. And the fact that we've learned through this process will make us also get rid of some of the fraud.
Okay, if I understand it correctly, once you apply online, you should get a reply in about 10 days or so. What should you do if you don't? And we've seen during the application for the 350 Rand grant, so many people would get in touch and say, look, I haven't actually been contacted, I don't know what's happened, I haven't got the money. What do you do if you apply and you don't get a reply?
The key thing is for the 10 days is after you've submitted all your documentation. It's not at the time of applying. So what's going to be important is for you to make sure that you supply all the documents that are required. We currently have a process, even in terms of our normal grants, whereby the turnaround time in many instances for those people that come to our offices is between 3 to 5 days. And in some instances, if you've got all the information, we can actually respond to you within a day to tell you whether you qualify or you don't qualify. So the 10 days is for us to give ourselves space as we learn through in what's working.
All right, Totsie Memela, we seem to be losing you there. I do apologize. All right, I'm sorry about that. Important